What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So I will be making schedule predictions for every single Power 5 team in college football for this upcoming season. I'll also do a subsequent conference standings video once I finish every team in a specific conference, just as a synopsis of all my schedule predictions. Those synopses will be coming later on into August as we get closer to the start of the regular season. Between now and then, I have to finish up all of the individual ones. I'm finishing up the Pac-12 today. So let's go ahead and get into the Utah schedule predictions. So some quick thoughts on the Utah program as a whole heading into 2022. And this is a program that has been a model of consistency in the Pac-12 in recent years, and their staff is outstanding. They always field one of the most well-coached and disciplined teams in the country. They have a hard-nosed style of play where they control the lines of scrimmage, they run the ball down your throat, and they play stellar defense, which is really not what you come to expect from a Pac-12 team most of the time. They're sort of the antithesis of what you would normally expect to see out of a Pac-12 football team, which is an interesting dynamic to watch throughout seasons. But they rarely have the best talent in the Pac-12. You know, normally teams like Oregon or USC or even like a Washington, and sometimes now kind of UCLA to some extent too, will be just as, if not more talented than them. But Utah is almost known for doing more with less at this point, and it's because of the coaching staff that they have, the style of play that they have, and how good they are at developing talent, but also just getting everybody to buy in. They have an outstanding culture, and so they consistently field one of the most tough, well-disciplined teams out there. And honestly, I just love to watch them play because you tend to know what you're going to get every week. There isn't a bunch of up and down with them. When they show up to play just about every single week. You know, they're not having a bunch of inconsistency. You know what you're going to get, and it's always a good game and a good team. So for this year, though, Oregon and USC both have first-year head coaches, and UCLA and Washington, while being very good, are both not really as good as Utah at this point, which set things up for them really nicely, honestly. Now, that isn't to say that Utah is going to just cakewalk through the Pac-12, but it does mean that they should be the favorites in this conference, in my opinion, and they have the best combination of talent, coaching, and then continuity of anybody else in the conference this year. And I think they're going to end up being the best team in the conference because of that when all is said and done. Again, that doesn't mean they're just going to cakewalk through, but I think they're going to be the favorites, and I think they should be the favorites to win the conference. So now let's talk about some opponents who just don't have much of a chance to beat them, barring some level of catastrophe, and those teams are Southern Utah and San Diego State. Now, San Diego State, a little bit tougher than Southern Utah. Neither one of them are going to be good enough to beat Utah in all likelihood, though. So the first game we are going to talk about does come in Week 1, and it is at Florida, and this is a super exciting game for me. I'm really interested to see how this one goes. And hats off to Utah for scheduling an SEC team, a big-time SEC team, in the out-of-conference, and then not only just playing them in a neutral site or at home, but going all the way to Florida to play it. You have to respect that. That's really good to see. Now, Florida is in an interesting spot. They're not the team that you would normally expect to see from Florida, to be honest, because they're coming off of the Dan Mullen era, which ended really unceremoniously. And they've got Billy Napier taking over now, and there is a lot of talent there, and I think Napier's going to be a good coach over time. But he's in year 1, and that's always a big unknown. And you have Anthony Richardson at quarterback. He is somewhat unproven. We know he's full of talent, but we haven't seen him put it all together consistently yet. And as good as I think Florida may be, I don't think they're going to be as good as Utah. I think Utah is a noticeably better team. I think Utah knows its identity much more. They have much more continuity. And I think they're going to go in there, and I think they're going to get a big win. Now, this is going to be a close game. This is going to be one of the toughest games they played this year. But, again, I think with the continuity, they know their identity. I think they're just a better team as well. So I think even on the road in the swamp, I think they're going to go in there and get a big win to kick off the season in Week 1. Next game up comes in Week 4, and that is against Arizona State on the road. And not a game to take lightly. Arizona State is a decent team. They've got a lot of question marks around the program, a lot of off-the-field stuff going on. But the on-the-field product is still going to be a pretty good team. Now, they're not going to be nearly as good as Utah. It's a game Utah should be favored in. Utah should win. They should handle business just fine. But definitely one to maybe keep an eye on. You don't want to overlook them or take them lightly. They are good enough to give you a scare here. Still, going to go with Utah to get the win. But again, keep an eye on that one. They follow that up with Oregon State at home, and somewhat similar story to Arizona State. I think Oregon State good enough to hang in there with Utah for a little while, give them a little bit of trouble, but Utah is A, they're at home with this one, and B, they are just the better team across the board. They should be favored by a pretty decent margin here. I expect them to handle business and be just fine here against Oregon State. They're just, like I said, they're just the better team, and the good thing with their style of play is that it translates every single week. They show up and they play basically the same level every single week. So I think they're going to be just fine there against Oregon State. Next game up, though, is a very interesting one, and that is at UCLA. And this is interesting for a number of reasons. First, it's on the road. That's always tough. And then also, UCLA is going to be a very good team in the Pac-12 this year. They're not a team to take lightly. DTR's back at quarterback there. I think he's in his 5th year now. And he's going to be very good. Chip Kelly has them going very well. They have some questions on defense and on their lines of scrimmage, which is where you'd think Utah should be really good at. But their offense is going to be really good. Honestly, I think their defense is going to be much improved. And they're a very good team. And being on the road here, and then also USC is the next game. And I think Utah, as much as anybody, is going to fall victim just a little bit to a little bit of look ahead. Because I think UCLA is kind of going to go under the radar for a little bit here. And it's not to say that they're going to take them lightly necessarily or ignore them. But there's just going to be a little bit of that, we've got USC next week, Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, all that. That's going to be a big one. So I think UCLA is going to get an upset win here. And now it's not a huge upset because, honestly, UCLA is one of the better teams in the conference. They're not an easy out by any means. Utah is better than them, but not dramatically so. And so if they slip up a little bit here and don't play their A game with how UCLA is going to be next year, I think they could easily lose that game. So I'm going to go with UCLA to get a surprise win. Now that brings us to, like I mentioned, the next week against USC. And Utah is at home for this one. It is right before a bye week, too. But they're at home for this one. I think they're a better team than USC at this point. I think USC's questions are in all of the areas where Utah's answers are, if that makes sense. USC's big questions are on their offensive and defensive lines and really their defense as a whole. Utah knows what their defense is going to be. They know what their lines of scrimmage are going to be. And I think they're really just a really bad matchup for USC, especially at this point in the USC program with year one under Lincoln Riley. I think the moment may be a little bit big for them in some ways. And again, Utah matches up, strength to USC's weakness across the board. So I'm going to go with Utah to win there, probably win by a decent margin. Now, it's going to be a good game, and it's definitely a game that is going to be very, very important in the Pac-12 and could really determine things for the postseason. But again, I think Utah is just a really bad matchup for USC. I'm going to go with them to get a big win there. Then, as I mentioned, they get a bye week, and then they pretty interestingly play at Washington State on a Thursday, which is intriguing, and it's definitely a weird scheduling dynamic to have a bye week and then go into a Thursday game. So it doesn't completely counteract your bye week, but it almost does, and it's just a little bit strange. And then you're going on the road there at Washington State. That's always a really tough place to play. It's not an easy out by any means, and as much as I think Utah is the better team there's a lot of concern on my end that coming off of a big win over USC, you get a bye week, you're starting to head into what looks like a little bit of an easier stretch here. You're playing on a Thursday night, which is just going to be really strange. You're up on the road at Washington State, and Washington State has a high-powered offense. I know they've got a new staff and all, but they have a high-powered offense. They're going to have a very good quarterback. And I think Washington State gets a big upset win. Now, this one is much more of an upset than UCLA. UCLA, I think, is more likely, first off, but then also they're just a much better team than Washington State, so it's a more expected loss almost. This one would definitely be a shocker and an upset. This game Utah will probably win more times than not, but I think they're going to drop something somewhere along the way. So I'm going to go with Washington State to be the team that surprises them here and gets a big win on the Thursday. Then they get Arizona at home, and that's when they're going to be just fine. And Arizona is not good enough to really threaten Utah. They're not going to be able to push them too much. Utah is the home team as well, so that really lines up nicely for them too. They're going to be laser focused, especially if they are coming off a loss or even just a close game against Washington State. So I think they're going to come out, make a statement in the Arizona game, and win big there. Follow that up with Stanford at home, and a little bit more of the same. Now, Stanford's definitely better than Arizona. Stanford's a team that could give them some trouble. I don't think they will, though. I don't think Stanford's going to match up well with Utah. I think Utah is just better than them across the board, and that's one that I think they will win as well. Then they go on the road at Oregon, and this is the big one here at the end of the season. Definitely one you're going to want to watch out for, keep an eye on, and certainly not take for granted, take lightly. Now, Oregon's in year one under Dan Lanning, so there's a lot of unknown there to some extent, but they still have a lot of talent. They have Bo Nix coming in at quarterback, which is going to be very interesting to see. And that game could really determine a lot for the Pac-12. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be a great quarterback. I think he'll be good. I don't think he's going to be good enough to really elevate Oregon at that point. And I just don't think Oregon's going to be good enough to get this win. But on the road there, that's a tough matchup. If there's a team here that could be considered to be as good as Utah, it may well be Oregon. They're a really tough out. So I'm going to go with Utah to win there. Definitely one of the biggest games of the season, though. Keep an eye out for that one for sure. And then they wrap up the year at Colorado. Now, at this point, Colorado could maybe be seen as a trap game. They're on the road there. It's not an easy place to play. It's at the end of the season. They're considered to be an easier opponent. But if Utah is doing what I think they're going to be doing, where they're pushing for the Pac-12 title, they'll be in contention here. They're going to be laser focused for this game. They're going to know that this is a must-win. This is not a game they can afford to lose. And they're going to be absolutely locked in and ready to go. I think they're going to be just fine there, and I think they will roll against Colorado, get an easy win. So that makes Utah 10-2 on the season, which is a really strong record for them, and it could be even better assuming they don't drop a game they should win, where I have them dropping one to Washington State that they really should win, to be honest. But regardless, I think they're going to be the best team in the conference this upcoming season, and that they should be in the Pac-12 title game at the end of the year with a 10-plus win year. Now, if things don't fall their way, I could see an 8 or a 9 win season on the absolute low end. They drop a game or two that they should win. Maybe they lose to Florida or Oregon. But that seems pretty unlikely to me. And I'm pretty confident in them making the Pac-12 title. I think that they're going to get to their 10-win total, maybe 11-win total, and make the Pac-12 title. And hopefully for their sake, they're going to get it done. They're going to win it. and if they do, a potential playoff berth would be on the table there, just depending on how everything else falls. I mean, that's always an unknown. But they would have a big win over Florida at that point, especially if they go 11-1 without the loss to Washington State. I mean, you could really, really argue a strong argument for a potential playoff berth for them if they handle business in the Pac-12. But that is a little bit more of a long shot, in my opinion, than just winning the conferences. So, something to keep an eye on for Utah. I think they're definitely a playoff hopeful. And again, I think they're going to be the best team in the Pac-12 this year. Got them at 10-2. Anyway, though, that'll do it for this one. Let me know down below in the comment section where you guys agree and or disagree with me on the Utah schedule in 2022. Tell me what record you think they're going to have next year and who, if anyone, they're going to lose to. Also, if you made it this far in the video, be sure to go ahead and leave a like. It does help out the channel tremendously. Let you know you're enjoying this kind of content. And subscribe for more college football content in the future. I'm going to continue to do this for the rest of the Pac-12. Finishing that out today. Got the Big Ten coming up after that. I have already finished the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. So be on the lookout for the new stuff. Check out some of the old stuff if you haven't. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.